While preparing the videos I make here on YouTube, I often browse the various sources of information available across the World Wide Web. I look over the magazine scans available that covered the classic games we all know and love, but every so often I seek out modern coverage as well. I recently used Metacritic to find opinions and reviews for a number of titles for the Sega Dreamcast. Looking at the top results and highest ranking games, I can't say I was surprised to see the likes of Soul Calibur, NFL 2K1, and Resident Evil Code Veronica. I was a bit shocked to see Zombie Revenge rated so low, and I thought Confidential Mission deserved better as well. While perusing these ratings, I also came across the lowest rated Dreamcast games according to Metacritic, in what was considered at the time the bottom of the barrel. I got the bright idea to cover these cellar dwellers and see if they were truly as bad as the review scores would indicate. We will be taking a look at some of these reviews and then I'll offer a score all my own. I've got 10 games for you, so let's get started. We start our list with Surf Rocket Racers, a jet ski game released in 2001 and developed by CRI. This one puts you in mind of Wave Race from Nintendo, and boy did the reviews of the day have a massive range for it. You have some that loved it and some that absolutely hated it. Sitting down and giving it a go, I didn't find anything particularly terrible about its content or gameplay. In fact, I found it decidedly average across the board, in pretty much every category. The graphics aren't impressive, but I also wouldn't call them dog ugly. The gameplay has no real depth, but it's easy to pick up and play. Its biggest sin really is that it's kinda boring. Metacritic has it setting at a 55 mixed reception, but I honestly feel that it's entirely too low. I could see realistically dropping a 6 or 7 on this, but some places like GameSpot doled out a brutal 4, which even by their own admission it didn't deserve. Among its many modes, you can play minigames, indulge in a time attack, challenge a buddy in multiplayer, and take on a championship career. It does just enough to not be a terrible game, and something that can be rather entertaining for an evening or two. For modern audiences, I'd say this deserves about a 6 out of 10. Not deep enough to challenge the better games or hold your attention for very long, but far from the anathema some reviewers claimed it to be. I wasn't surprised at all to see Sonic Shuffle on the low end of the list because I'm not fond of this game myself. Originally released in late 2000 and developed by Sonic Team and Hudson Soft, it was Sega's attempt to mimic the success of Mario Party. Reviews of the day were almost universally negative, with harsh words from IGN, GameSpot, and GameFan basically calling the game unplayable. This is one I fully agree with. The single-player mode is completely broken with cheap AI that will rob you blind. The multiplayer is marred by terrible load times, tedious minigames, and a presentation that looks more at home in a PlayStation game. It has an audience with those that can't get enough of the Sonic IP, its characters, or its world, but everyone else should avoid this turd like the plague. Frankly, some of these reviews didn't go hard enough on this. This is a 4 out of 10 on its best day. Sega released it in what can only be considered an unfinished state, and they deserve no mercy for charging $40 for it. Moving down the list, we come to Sydney 2000, an Olympic game developed by Attention to Detail. This is another one with a wide swath of reviews as high as 8s and 9s to as low as 3s and 4s. Going into it, I was expecting the worst, but was rather impressed with a number of its offerings. First up are the events. There are 12 in total, ranging from the 100-meter sprint, the hammer throw, high jump, and even weightlifting. You can train your athletes, coach them, challenge up to 3 friends, and there is even an arcade mode if you don't feel like competing in every event. The graphics aren't bad, a few of the events are really fun, and it has enough replay value to keep you coming back for a while. It's not going to win any awards for certain, especially with some of the tedium you'll face in the lesser events. But I feel some of these low scores are coming from people that just hate sports games in general, or who see fast button pressing gameplay as a waste of time. Its biggest issue is that it's clearly a game where the PlayStation versions were the lead in development, so it doesn't really take any advantage of the Dreamcast hardware. Those of you that enjoyed Sega's Decathlete or Konami's Track and Field will get the most out of this, but I still feel the ultra low scores were unjustified. It sits nicely at a 6 out of 10. Not for everyone, but also not without some merit.
That's a win for player 1. That was incredibly quick. It's a new world record.
Next up is a Dreamcast game I've not really played a ton of. Evil Dead: Hail to the King was a 2000 release that was developed by Heavy Iron Studios. It serves as a sequel to Army of Darkness, taking place after the movie and catching us up with everyone's favorite Deadite slayer, Ash. Reviews of the day were savage, calling it garbage that wasn't worth a rental. Hell, I even found some reviews that gave it a 0, they hated it so much. I honestly can't tell you the last time I played this, and it certainly wasn't for any real length of time, so I genuinely didn't remember what to expect. This is at its heart a survival horror experience, and an awful one at that. The stiff gameplay, the ugly visuals, the frustrating combat, and the respawning enemies all make this stinker a truly terrifying adventure start to finish. Thing is that a number of these reviews mention that the setting and environments were really quite good, and I totally agree. The game gets the mood right, and had everything else been up to snuff, this could have been a legendary Resident Evil competitor. Unfortunately, it just falls flat right from the beginning and never recovers. Just navigating the environment with the twitchy controls is a deal breaker, and that's before you even meet the first enemy. Some tighter, more polished gameplay could have turned this into something memorable, but instead, it deserves its place on this list and then some. I give it a 4 out of 10, and I came away sorely disappointed. In 2000, Sega released World Series Baseball 2K1 from developer Visual Concepts. I was really familiar with this one and was not surprised by the low review scores present on Metacritic. I was aware of the terrible fielding that had made this a frustrating experience. The thing is that when it's not irritating you to death, it's busy looking incredible and being really fun. It's fully licensed, has a full season mode, and you can edit and create rosters and players. There is fun to be had here, but I'd be lying if I didn't say the defensive play didn't leave a lot to be desired. Whereas the NFL 2K series was a well-rounded and superbly made game, World Series Baseball 2K1 has moments where you seriously have to ask, did the developers play this game before they released it? When your team takes the field, it's almost entirely AI controlled. That's right, you have to rely on the computer to deal with the ball when it's hit your way. Taking away that gameplay portion was bad enough, but to make the AI this bad is just plain headache-inducing. The fielding portion isn't the only thing I really didn't like here. The target reticle style batting was really hard to come to grips with, and I felt like it was pure luck when I actually hit something. It also doesn't sound good, it has performance issues, and it's light on expected features like a home run derby. I think a 5 out of 10 is the best I can do here. I can have a touch of fun with this if I'm in the mood, but the weaknesses are there and impossible to deny. Casuals may tolerate it better, but real MLB fans will come away wondering just what the hell happened.
Batting seventh, Mike Stanley. 2 outs and the bases are loaded. A fastball. A fastball. He hits a fly to right field. A fly ball to right. Burks makes the catch. San Francisco, nothing.
Death Crimson OX was a 2001 release developed by Eckel. Many of you may recall the god-awful Saturn game Death Crimson, which is easily one of the worst games I have ever had the displeasure of experiencing. Looking over the reviews for the Dreamcast game here, they would have you believe this is every bit as terrible as the Saturn original. No matter which outlet shared an opinion, they were all pretty much on the same page. Death Crimson OX was bad. As a veteran of the Saturn game, I have a special place of hatred for that abomination, and I can tell you that this Dreamcast game is far more playable. Listening to these reviewers skewer OX, I really did wonder had any of them played the original, because none of them know what a bad game truly is until they have. It's not that Death Crimson OX is good, it's actually not great at all. The story is ludicrous drivel, the graphics are bland, the music sucks, and the gunplay is barely adequate enough to hold your attention for a single play session. But what it does a million times better than the putrid garbage that was on the Saturn. I can't do much better than a 6 out of 10 for this one, but that's more than most people back then thought it was worth. Finding NFL Quarterback Club 2001 among these dregs wasn't unexpected. I was never really a fan of the series, and I thought it got progressively worse as the years went on. Acclaim had high voltage software develop it and release it in 2000. The reviews here are especially nasty, with most of them dismissing it entirely. The thing is, the Dreamcast had a couple of really good NFL football series, so there really was no reason to deal with this misfire at all. NFL Blitz and NFL 2K had the sim and arcade genres covered, so Acclaim needed something special to compete. This wasn't it, and I have to agree with the reviews that it was pretty much a waste of time. The AI was laughably bad, the control scheme felt awkward, and visually it didn't have the chops to compete. The 16-bit beginnings of the series showed some mild promise, but where things ended up were miles behind the competition. It gets a 4 out of 10 and it sorely deserves it.
The pass is caught. First down.
You kinda have to chuckle seeing multiple Acclaim games on this list. That company spat out some rather terrible games to be certain, and Jeremy McGrath's Supercross 2000 deserved every bad opinion you'll find on it. If anything, these reviews didn't go hard enough, because this is easily one of the worst titles on the Dreamcast. It's another piece of trash that was developed on another console and brought over to the Dreamcast with no real improvements. It looks bad, runs bad, and plays bad. The split-screen multiplayer is especially offensive, and worth firing up to see how not to make a racing game. I would go into detail, but I think the footage here speaks for itself. If you can believe it, development was handled by acclaimed studio Salt Lake City, which is what became of Sculptured Software. None of their past successes are evident here, and it's a real shame that this is where they ended up. It's another cog in the machine that allowed Acclaim to churn out garbage software for years, and it's a 3 out of 10 every day of the week. Pointless conversions marred the Dreamcast Western library, and this deserves no mercy. Sometimes you find a game, look at the case, and say to yourself, this game has to be awesome. That's exactly what I thought with Ducati World Racing Challenge from, you guessed it, Acclaim. Developed by Attention to Detail and released in 2001, it features a deep career mode and an incredible sense of speed. Unfortunately, it also features laughable physics, jittery gameplay, and graphics that should have been a lot better. This released first on the PlayStation, but somehow manages to be worse on the Dreamcast. Most of the reviews back then acknowledged it was pretty much broken, but few went into detail of just how bad it really was. Just staying on your bike for a complete lap is a challenge, and every other second you are playing it feels like you are seconds away from disaster. My best guess is that Acclaim was in desperate need of cash, so they took these games that were developed on the PlayStation and Nintendo 64, ported them over quick and dirty, and hoped for the best. The problem there was that most of these weren't great to begin with, so they often fared worse on the Dreamcast because the expectations were higher for next generation hardware. Instead of being prettier, better running, and filled with new content, most of Acclaim's titles fell flat and left you with a profound sense of disappointment. It's another 3 out of 10 for me, and another one the management at Acclaim should be ashamed of. According to the reviews Metacritic kept tabs on, ECW Anarchy Rulz is the worst game on the Sega Dreamcast. It has an average of 38 and is universally accepted as unfavorable. It's yet another release from Acclaim developed by Acclaim Studio Salt Lake City and released in late 2000. I was quite the wrestling fan during the 80s and 90s, so I had some interest in this one, at least until I played it. To their credit, the developers genuinely attempted to make this one different from Acclaim's other WWF games. It features a ton more moves, modes, and match types. You can create stables, go after belts, and go on tour as the champion. It certainly doesn't lack in options, and it's just a shame the gameplay isn't up to snuff. Most of what's here is clearly based on WWF Warzone, which was a 2-year-old Acclaim game by this point. That gameplay was already way behind the better Nintendo 64 wrestling games, so it was really hard for me to stay with this one for any length of time. It's certainly playable, and it's fun to mess around with the variety of match types, especially the rumble and cage matches. Grab a few friends and that fun can actually last a while. But this was released in the era when WCW NWO Revenge and WrestleMania 2000 were out there, and in that group, this is not in the same league. Anarchy Rulz lacks the same refinement and sophistication, but I feel the reviews were overly harsh. Many outlets rated it lower than the PlayStation version, which is just absolute BS. It plays the same and looks better and in no way is worse. This one gets a 6 out of 10 for me, and I question whether some of these reviewers even bothered to play it.
Vertical suplex.
How can you people root for him?
With nearly half this list composed of Acclaim releases, this could almost be a worst of for that company. I did think it was interesting that Sega itself had 2 games on the list, and they were IPs they usually do a decent job with. More than anything, I came away feeling like the Dreamcast suffered mightily with publishers doing quick and easy conversions from lesser hardware. Few of these games ever showed off what the Dreamcast could do, and even fewer stood out with any new content. This seemed to really grate on the reviewers, who often rated the Dreamcast version worse than its contemporaries. While the Dreamcast had a load of killer releases early in its life, these types of games began to become the norm later on, and almost certainly hurt the device in the long run. If you enjoyed this episode, I am also thinking about doing the same for Metacritic's top 10 best games on the Dreamcast. I will run down what those games scored and then offer up one of my own. If that sounds like something you'd like to see, let me know down in the comments. I'm Sega Lord X, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.